Good evening to the first Democratic uh, primary debate, where we have two of the frontrunners, basically. We have Mr. James May, Democrat from Ohio, who has ran into great prominence after announcing his candidacy for president. And we have Representative Wyatt DiChristopher, seen as one of the most successful uh, members of the House, winning in a was seen to be close um, House House race, which was first predicted to be for the Republicans, but won unexpectedly for the Democrats. So, for the debate rules of the Democratic Party, we have this: the debate will be 1 hour and 30 minutes. Each candidate, okay, excuse me. Each candidate has 5 minutes for opening statement. After that 5 minutes is up, um, we will get uh, to the issues. Now there has been a coin toss here, and that coin toss has landed on Mr. May from Ohio. So, Mr. May, you have 5 minutes for your opening statements. Pause the video for a second. Okay, we'll just go back to Mr. May. Representative DeChristopher, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, my fellow Americans. I first want to thank Mr. Jones for agreeing to moderate this debate, and Mr. May for agreeing to debate tonight.
Mm-hmm.
A couple days ago, I launched my presidential campaign with one thing in mind: the fact that a movement can turn this country in the right direction. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on a mission to spread my policies and ideas to everyday Americans. I'm in this race because there are many issues that have been facing this country for many years, and quite frankly, we haven't had anyone to solve these problems. Well, I have a solution: that we need to elect someone to the White House with the experience, character, and dignity to lead this nation. And believe me, that person is me. You see, once we have a leader in the White House with the boldest reforms that help, we would then start to see a chain reaction of this country turning in the right direction, for the better. I've laid out a comprehensive plan on how a DeChristopher administration will work for the American people. We've seen many politicians make a bunch of campaign promises, but they never really do the action. They're all the talk, but no bark. I have the legislative history to back up my campaign. A legislative career rooted in the very fundamental idea of finally working for Americans to unleash the American dream. As I stand up here today, you will hear from me and my opponent debate about the issues crippling Americans nationwide. And trust me, by the end of this debate, you will start to see why my plan is America's plan. A plan to make this country work for everyday Americans again. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is Mr. May up? Uh, okay. Yeah, we can just pause. Yeah. Okay.
Due to technical difficulties, Mr. May is getting a microphone, and the Democratic presidential debate will resume in exactly 2 minutes. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. I'll stand by. He's here.
Okay, I'm sorry, my headphones died on me.
Okay. Right. You want to restart this?
The Democratic presidential debate is back online.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Wait, is it on? Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes. James May, you now have 5 minutes for your opening statements.
Okay. When I launched my campaign, I launched it with one perspective and one reason: to advance America forward with the world. In America, we here in America don't have many things that the rest of the world has already advanced to, like a national healthcare service. But I launched my campaign to move America into the future, to bring America forward with the rest of the world. As the largest economy, to move us with the rest of the Western world, to bring us things that other countries have, and to bring the American people a brighter future. And I think, yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you for both candidates. Now let's go to the issues. Now, the first question is this: we are, I'm pretty sure we all know that from the history of the United States, we have turned into more racial divisiveness in this country. A part of that is, of course, high rates of police brutality going around for people who are more minorities, people of color. If you were president now, how would you act upon instituting better police brutality laws or police programs, which would help uh, eradicate police brutality across the country? This question will go to Mr. May first.
First of all, I believe that we need first police accountability, because statistically, very few police get charged for doing things that they shouldn't have done. Most police don't get anything from doing things that they shouldn't have done. So the first thing I do is make sure that we hold our police accountable. That would be one of the first things I do. I'd also make sure that we can be sure that our police
Mr. May.
Bruh.
Um, Mr. May, have you finished? Um, okay.
Sorry. Anyway, yes.
Okay, thank you. This question goes to the same question goes to Mr. DiChristopher.
Thank you, Senator Jones, for the wonderful question. Well, what we need to do first is to look into how the way law enforcement works. We need to reform law enforcement at its roots. And this is a problem that I address in the Law Enforcement Identification Act. which hold federal law enforcement officers accountable for their actions when it comes to police brutality or any other things where they have put the detainee that they have in custody in harm. Mr. Jones, I have a deep amount of respect for every last single person that has been a victim of police brutality, especially those that have been victims of police brutality of my own race. And even though the Ninth Amendment prohibits, well, don't prohibits, but disadvantages Congress on making certain reforms to state and municipal law enforcement agencies, my goal as president will be to work with the GOP to create a bipartisan legislation to work with state and municipal law enforcement agencies to hold their police officers accountable. Not only this, but also in the Law Enforcement Identification Act, we put body cameras into that bill, and that bill passed the House just yesterday and is currently on the Senate floor. What this bill does, it takes us one step closer into reforming our criminal justice system, and that is imperative for us to reform the racial bigotry that is in this country today. We need to get rid of it once and for all. And that is my plan for that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. DiChristopher. Okay. The next question is this: the President of the United States issued an executive order which did become controversial to the United States Senate Majority Leader, in which he made this executive order, which combined um, major departments of of uh, of this country and led cabinet officials to only three of them: the Minister of Industry, Domestic Affairs, and the Economy. Um, what is your opinion of this? And if you were president, would you keep that sort of executive order, or would you abolish it on the first day? This question goes to Representative DiChristopher. Thank you.
And for the record, this was the executive order that simplified the government.
I believe so. Yes.
I will abolish it on day one, and let me tell you why. The fact that the president did this, and it was on his agenda for many weeks, and he did this on purpose to make the government smaller into terms of thinking that it will save money or etc. It will not, and it did not. What you don't do is put departments like the Department of Homeland Security with the Department of Justice when there are two different things going on. It might be law enforcement, yes, but the Department of Homeland Security specializes on affairs that or domestic terrorist attacks within our homeland and immigration, whereas the Department of Justice actually have law enforcement agencies targeted with justice. That executive order, some might say, was a really good thing to do. Well, the GOP, because it again made the government smaller. I disagree. So on day one, I would abolish it, definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Your time is up. The same question goes to Mr. James May.
I think I agree with Mr. DiChristopher on this issue. Yes, I would also definitely get rid of this executive order very early on in my, because it is.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Our next question is this: the budget was finally agreed upon by both houses of Congress, which they approved it. During that budget, however, settled to many discussions, many arguments, many disagreements from both members of the House and members of the Senate. To later to find out, what came from those budget negotiations were, of course, cuts to social programs, where we're coming from one side, while another side was supporting to increase social programs for people who are poor. Uh, there were many debates on this, and once it lasted upon a agreed upon bill, which finally gave our country's newest budget. If you were president, what would you do to negotiate with Congress to ensure that you would have a budget that works for people and that is more agreement towards your issues that you establish as if elected as president of the United States? This question will go to James May first.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. If you were president, how would you negotiate with Congress in order to get what you want done in a budget that would help the people of the United States? Okay, we'll go back to you, um, Mr. DiChristopher.
Thank you for the question. Well, I was right there at the budget negotiations when we discussed multiple budgets that we thought of passing through the chambers of Congress. And it was really tough into getting the GOP to agree with our budget, and it was really tough for the GOP to agree, to get us to agree to their budget. But at the end of the day, one budget did not end up working out, and we compromised on a budget so we can get it passed quickly for the American people. During the budget negotiations, I've always said that the longer there is no budget, the longer the American people struggle. And that was the number one thing that was on my mind during the negotiations. Um, well, in order to get a Republican House or a Republican Senate to pass a Democrat budget, you need to have bipartisanship, and this is what I ran on my presidential campaign. In order to get progress done, we have to be bipartisan. We need to throw away all the shade, all of the rudeness going in both sides, and we need to compromise on the issues that are facing the Americans most.
Okay, thank you. Mr. May, you have 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, I've been having a bit of technical issues. I'm looking at with my phone, but I think I agree with Mr. DiChristopher on this. We do need to be bipartisan on issues like this.
Mm, okay, thank you. Okay, our next question is this: the president of the United States currently has continued to talk about his plans for healthcare and how he uh, believes how his plan should be established for the American people within his State of the Union address. Uh, if you were president, or even not president, but what is your plan uh, to establish healthcare to citizens? What kind of healthcare plan do you support uh, implementing to the United States? This question will go to Representative DiChristopher.
Thank you for another brilliant question. Well, yes, everyone deserves the right to healthcare. But before we take a drastic turn into implementing universal healthcare, which I support for a number of reasons, we first need to implement um, Medicaid expansion within all aspects. And we need to first expand the affordable healthcare to implement a system that will expand Medicaid to those who are mentally ill and who are not qualified for their original Medicaid plan. And 20% of Americans have mental health problems, yet only 50% of them get treated. And under a DiChristopher administration, the new Medicaid system that I am very willing to impose will remove barriers for people with mental illness by allowing people to qualify based on income rather than a disability determination. This helps people get mental health services when they need them. When adults gain access to health coverage, it also benefits entire families. Children of low-income families are more likely to get coverage and receive annual child visits with include mental health screenings when their parents have Medicaid coverage. But one thing that I've heard on both sides of the Democratic Party, Blue Dog Democrats and progressives, is that we need to pass universal health care. But multiple economics has determined that if we implement universal health care without implementing a system like Medicaid expansion first, that will leave drastic change of events into our economy. So that is why I support.
Mr. Representative, there will be an add-on question upon that. By for what you stand, is it a public option?
Yep.
Okay. Um, Now just for a little extra nuance when it comes to a public option, uh, there are, especially when it comes to the United States and former crises, over 60% of Americans stood for some sort of government uh, controlled healthcare system to at least help them when it comes to health crisis. It appears that as of now, your plan is more of uh, unpopular compared to many other healthcare plans. How could you propose that with the opinion of the American people on the other side?
Very easy. Well, if you look at my platform or if you look at any of the speeches that I talked about Medicare or Medicaid, it specifically says or hints at that if a DeChristopher administration is elected into the White House, and if the system of the Medicaid expansion that we want to propose is successful, if we do run for re-election, we will heavily work with the GOP and GOP congressional leaders to pass universal health care as we have already done one agenda goal. And I think that is very important into not ruining our economy. You also have to think that universal health care costs a lot of money. Um, and we have seen multiple people try to implement universal health care before. It did not work. So in order for us to actually get that plan proposed and enacted, we need to take small steps first before we take the bold approach.
Thank you. Your time is up. Mr. May, um, I, I'll ask you the same question. Um, that how would you propose your healthcare plan, and what kind of healthcare plan do you support implementing to the American people? Okay. We'll just go back to Mr. May. Um, okay. New question. All right. Um, this question is fairly simple. What is your stance on environment, particularly part um an industry that has played a part in really detrimenting our environmental part of the United States? What would you do to increase the to excuse me, what would you do to decrease the effects on climate change? And what is your stances on the fossil fuel industry? Oh, this goes to Mr. DiChristopher.
Well, clean air and water are very vital to our health and welfare and to our economy. We can't allow big corporations to mortgage our planet's future by continuing to pump dangerous amounts of pollution into our communities, especially communities of color and low-income communities that are hit the hardest. That's why it is time to pass an American Blue New Deal. What is the American Blue New Deal? I'm glad you asked. It is a piece of legislation that will invest into our fishery and ocean industries on the northeast and Pacific coast, and it will add 1 to 2 million jobs to our American economy. And what else will I would do to combat the climate?
Thank you. Your time is up.
That was only 30 seconds.
Yeah. Your time's up. Thank you.
Do you have a
this goes
timer
for-
on?
no, excuse me. Do not speak out of line.
If you don't have a timer on, I think I
Mister,
can allow more time.
Mister. We will not have quarrels with the moderator.
Did
This
you
goes-
have a timer?
Excuse me.
Because I didn't hear a timer.
Mr. May.
And that was less than 30 seconds.
Mr. May. Your time. You have
Lord,
you have
that's
30
so
seconds
close.
as well.
So first of all, I do believe we need to look into, for the fossil fuel industry, we need to make it so that it is possible that perhaps we could work with the fossil fuel industry to try and get them to perhaps look into industries outside of fossil fuel, more specifically renewables. Because the main way we get rid of the many issues and problems caused by the fossil fuel industries, we need to try and
thank you, Mr. May. Your 30 seconds up. A new question.
May I respond? Butto.
Would you like? Oh, you like
Butto.
Butto. You have 15 seconds.
Thank you. Well, Jamal, that was a trick. Let me continue. As president, I will also support and propose legislation that would invest in metropolitan public transportation systems and research ways for public transportation hubs
Your
to be
15
more
seconds is over.
efficient.
Thank you.
That was not even 15 seconds.
You're
Oh my god,
15
you are...
You're 15, sir.
That was not even 15 seconds. That was literally 7 seconds.
Sir.
You must forgot that I have a timer right here. You are such a horrible moderator. It is hilarious.
Shut up. Sir. Your time is up. Excuse me, sir. Would you like to debate me on here? Excuse me. Would you like to debate me? Oh, okay. We'll debate later. But your 15 seconds is over. Hush,
Yeah,
sir.
we'll
Sir,
debate.
you're out
We'll
of
debate
line.
later.
You're out of line.
Go
You're
back.
out of line. Yeah,
Go
you're
to the
out
next
of line.
question.
You are out of line.
You don't got
Hush.
no
Mute his mic.
timer. You so
Mute his mic.
unprofessional.
Hush.
Just unprofessional.
Mute his mic.
Horrible. Can't mute my mic. You know what? I'm gonna mute my mic because you're rude.
Shut up.
You don't even have a timer.
Hush.
The American people will see this and they will call you out on it.
Mute his microphone. Mute his microphone. All right. Rude. Excuse me for that rude introduction. That was from Representative Wyatt DiChristopher.
If you don't have a timer,
now here's
so
the
rude.
question. This will be about criminal justice. What is your stance on criminal justice?
Yay!
And what would you do to implement it across the United States? This will be this question will go to Mr. James May of Ohio.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, what is your plans for criminal justice reform, and how would you implement it across this country? I'll think about it. Um, right now, Mr. May, you have a minute.
Um, uh, I think that on criminal justice, I think, first of all, th-
Mr. May. Okay, we will go back to you. Representative DiChristopher, you have 1 minute. Um, to respond to the question.
Thank you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Well,
That will be a part of your 1 minute. Just remember that.
Whatever. In Congress, I introduced the Law Enforcement Identification Act. The bill would hold state and federal law enforcement officers accountable for misconduct and require them to have on their body cameras when on duty and responding to a call. I also wrote the Federal Investigation on Discriminatory Prisons Act while in Congress. The bill would establish a federal investigation on multiple correction facilities around the country to make sure discrimination against prisoners or criminal activities were not committed by the officials that work there. Both bills have been estimated to help build another step into reforming our criminal justice system, but the work isn't over yet. I believe that it's fair to say that we have a broken criminal justice system, a system that deeply affects the African American and Latino communities. But not only that, but the current system isn't built to accept people of the LGBTQIA plus community. That's why, as president, I will work with Congress to pass two bills listed above, bills that will help combat and fix our current system, to create a new bipartisan bill that will create and set a set of laws to protect those incarcerated. The DiChristopher administration will also declare a national emergency that our national criminal system is overall systemically racist, and we will work with Congress to stop decriminalizing poverty and decriminalize mental health. And that is why I also plan to propose the Decriminalizing Marijuana Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Yeah, I know that.
Excuse you. Mr. May, you have 1 minute.
okay, so first of all, I would first of all work to jury reform, because many ways people use different methods to try and exclude African Americans from the jury, which harms the African American community. I'd also work towards lessening the usage of I don't know what the word is, but like because there are many methods we use as evidence that are outdated, like bite mark evidence, that are used overwhelmingly to convict criminals, despite the fact that there have been numerous studies proving that many of these methods are outdated and don't work properly. I'd also work towards getting rid of or lessening the usage of the death penalty.
Thank you, Mr. May. Your time is up. You have a 15-second rebuttal.
Thank you. Well, Mr. May, you have really good plans for criminal justice. But do you plan on working with the other side to get these things done? Again, you have to realize that there are many Republicans in this community, and if you have a Republican Congress, you need to work to get criminal justice reform passed. And another thing, when it comes to criminal justice reform, there's also prison reform, and we also need to reform our prison system as well.
Would Mr. May like to respond to that rebuttal? Okay. Next question. This will be a uh a now larger segment in which you will now have 5 minutes to answer the question, and you will have don't don't do that,
Praise the Lord.
and 30 seconds to rebuttal. This first question will be on poverty. Um, Poverty has steadily increased while the wealthy have uh, grown over, while the top 10 richest people in America have grown their wealth by over $10 trillion within just 5 years, while the middle class has been shrinking in their wealth. Uh, as as president, what would you do to help combat poverty in the United States? This will go to Representative DiChristopher.
Thank you. Well, let's look at the facts. Over 4 million people are unemployed in this country. Many of those people are people of the African American and Latinx communities. They live in low income households and they either have their GED or they don't have no high school diploma. This is unacceptable. The fact that we had multiple presidents in the past promise to their constituents that they would try to get this thing under control, they have not. They haven't even reached out to Congress to combat this issue. So the question is, what will a DiChristopher administration will do? Well, I'm glad you asked. The Christopher administration would be very willing to invest around $200 billion in apprenticeship programs, so the people that are trying to find a job will know more about the job they want to have. And the Christopher administration will point out what rights workers are entitled to have, and we will promote the female and minority race workforce. We will also promote exports and domestic manufacturing and protect workers from being discriminated against in hostile situations in the workforce. Look, the fact, again, 4 million people unemployed in this country. We need something to bring back American jobs. We need bold and comprehensive reforms to bring back American jobs. That's why we're going to pass the American Blue New Deal. That's why we're going to pass the American Housing Reform Act. That's why we're going to pass the American Prison Reform Act. All those bills help to create around 10,000 to 2 million jobs in this country, each bill alone. Think about that.
Has the representative finished his statement?
Yes, I have. Unless you want me
Okay.
to go on and on and on and on.
No, that
Yeah,
was
I
for
thought
fun.
so.
Thank you.
Because I have a lot of things.
Hush. Excuse me, mister. Thank you.
Lord have
Mr. May, the same question goes for you.
I believe I agree with Representative DiChristopher on a lot of what he said. I also would also add that a May administration would also look into raising the federal minimum wage, which is something I've stated before I would do, because studies have shown that increasing the minimum wage would overall bring up to worth of nearly 1 million Americans out of poverty. It also allows more circulation of money in the economy because people are getting paid more, so they do more stuff. And I think, yeah.
May I rebuttal?
Thank you, Mr. May.
May I rebuttal?
You have 30 seconds.
Mr. May, how much do you want to increase the minimum wage?
Well, it's been shown that $15 federal minimum wage.
And are you 100% positive that a $15 minimum wage won't hurt our economy? Look, folks, again, what we need to do is pass bold and
The
comprehensive
representative has
reform
15 more seconds.
legislation.
Has 15 seconds left.
Okay, I understand that. Bring bold and comprehensive legislation to bring American jobs back to America.
He has 10 seconds left.
That also includes a tax relief for big corporations so they can keep their company in America so we can keep those jobs. The DiChristopher administration will do that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Oh my God.
Would Mr. May like to rebuttal? Okay, hearing no rebuttals, we will go to the next. Wait, Mr. May, would you like to rebuttal?
I'm sorry, can Mr. Christopher read his rebuttal?
Okay.
Okay.
I said, are you sure a $15 minimum wage won't hurt our economy? Of course, everyone thinks a $15 minimum wage is good. I do. But not to just only implement a $15 minimum wage, we need to make sure that it won't hurt our economy. Because if it hurts our economy, we're going to lose more jobs. And we also need to look into fiscal responsibility for our everyday Americans.
Hush. We will now go. Excuse me. You are out of line. We will now we will now go to our next question. This question will be like this. The President of the United States is, of course, more conservative, and he has stand by proposing more tax cuts across the board. Now, we've seen this tax cuts go across the board and proposed by other presidents upon the time, from Ronald Reagan, from George W. Bush, in which led to uh, further economic downfalls and even a possibility towards a recession. Uh, if you were president of the United States, what difference would you make in order to install tax cuts while also increasing equity for our economy? This question will go to Mr. James May of Ohio. The uh, Mr. May has 4 minutes to respond.
I don't think he's going to respond.
Okay, this question goes to
Can you repeat the question? I lost track of time.
It goes to Mr. DiChristopher. 5 minutes.
Repeat the question.
Okay. The President of the United States has talked about lowering taxes across the board. Presidents who was previously known for cutting taxes across the board, from Ronald Reagan and for George W. Bush, ended the economy to more of a stagnant downfall. If you stand for lowering taxes for the middle class, what would you propose to Congress that would lower taxes while also increasing money for the economy? And how will we learn from the downfall from other presidents that have tried to uh, institute lower taxes across the board?
Great question. And just for elaboration, President Long did tax cuts for low, middle, and upper class families.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
that's
why I
why I
said
said
across the
across the
board.
board. Well, we first need to have a balanced budget, and we also need to institute a 2-cent wealth tax. Look, throughout the times that I've been in this server, and especially in Congress, we don't have a balanced budget at all. And I know that the president has always wished for tax cuts, which is always a good thing. I'm all for tax cuts for low and middle class families. But let's look at the reality. He is cutting these taxes for rich families, and it is a known fact. What we need to do is institute a wealth tax so we can not only tax the wealth and do tax cuts for low and middle class families, but so we can also add a little bit more money to our economy. And that also goes for a balanced budget. If we don't have a balanced budget, we don't have a good economy. We don't have a good economy, there's no jobs, there's no money pouring in. So that's one thing that is really important.
Has the representative finished his statement? Oh no, don't get snappy with me. I'm the moderator. Anyway, let's excuse you. Mr. May, you have 5 minutes. Okay. Right now we will go to a 2 minute commercial so Mr. May can go back online.
A 2-minute
Coke is
commercial will
refreshing.
ensue.
All right. Time. Thank you.
Sorry, what's going on?
Well, welcome to the Democratic primary debate after the commercial. We have now gone to Mr. James May for the question. Would you like me to repeat the question?
So, what's the question?
No, we just go to new questions. Okay. This question goes to Mr. James May. This will be about foreign policy. Sorry, I kind of cut off there. Um, we have seen an increased insurgence coming from China as they have treated their Uyghur population by putting them in concentration camps, and while people in the Middle East, including countries from Israel to Saudi Arabia, in which they have continuously been known for monumentous human rights violations from the Yemen war uh, uh, and from Israel, and them silencing and Palestinians from uh, having their own country. As president, what would you do to ensure peace while ensuring American diplomacy across other countries in the world?
Um,
Mr. May? Okay, we will go back to you. Uh, Representative DiChristopher, same question to you.
Mr. Jones, can you repeat the question?
Okay. Uh, in the 21st century, we have seen more imperialism and human rights violations, excuse me, coming from countries from China and their treatment of the Uyghur people, and from, as we all know, what comes from the Middle East, from Israel and from Yemen and from Saudi Arabia. What would you do to help ensure peace while increasing human rights across the world if you were president of the United States now?
Well, since the beginning of the time of when I launched my presidential campaign, my my top three um, pieces of agenda was to promote peace and stability around the world, and part of that was a global nuclear agreement, Iran nuclear agreement, etc., etc. To address the specific events that has happened in China and in the Middle East, the U.S. needs to be a little bit more tough. We need to tell China that enough is enough. You have violated a lot of human rights violations, and under the Christopher administration, that would not be allowed or accepted. We have to be bold and tough. It's been a long time since a leader, especially a leader in the White House, have done that, especially to a country like China. We need to put a lot of economic repercussions on China if they fail to respond to our demands. Um, of course, I will try my hardest to not put this towards war. It will not turn towards war. Um, but at this time, we will put bold economic repercussions on the People's Republic of China if they do not comply with our orders, or if they go ahead and move on with aggression, especially in the China Sea. We need to work with our allies in the Asian Pacific region to curb Chinese militaristic aggression. And I've been very comprehensive about this. It's in my platform. I talk about it in my platform 3 times. This is unacceptable, and we need a leader in the White House to um, fix this immediately and to promote peace everywhere on this great earth.
Oh, okay. Just a question to add on to that. Would you fight to decrease American influence across South America, a continent in which has been very known for dictatorships, which were. Oh, I'm sorry. Uh, just a follow up question: would you uh, fight to decrease American influence across South American countries, in which historically has been known where the United States has been imperialist over South America, in which dictatorships have been brought up and brought down simply because of American aggression? Would you de- help stop that if you were president?
In terms of countries that have some form of democracy, like Argentina or Brazil, of course. In countries
Every
like
country.
Colombia,
Th-
in every
this
country,
country.
that will have to be something I'll have to discuss with my Secretary of State. But for a country like Colombia, where they are currently having a very huge economic event going on that is affecting every last single Colombian, most likely not. But again, that is something that me, um, the rest of my administration, especially our Secretary of State, will have to look up upon.
Okay, this question now goes to Mr. James May.
Yes. I think I agree with Mr. DiChristopher on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. James May. This new question will go.
Can I be a moderator here, please?
We're almost done, child.
Okay.
Almost done.
Okay.
You can moderate the next debate, which is like
All right. I just
after
like
this one.
I'll be debating Wyatt. I'd like to debate Wyatt on
Oh
foreign
no,
policy.
I'm debating why. You can moderate that.
Okay.
Hush, child. This question will now go to immigration. Mr. May, what is your plan on immigration, and how would you fight to reform it to ensure that we have more access to immigrants coming to this country to become U.S. citizens? You got 5 minutes. Excuse me.
Okay, first on immigration. First of all, with refugees. First of all, on immigration, I would expand access to refugees, as we have currently mishandled how we treat refugees, especially from South and Central America, by sending them back to areas that have similar problems and making it harder for them to get in. So first of all, I'd make it easier for migrants to make it into the country. And on immigration, I believe I would make it
Mr. May, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Have you finished? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. May. The same question will go to Representative DiChristopher.
About time. Well, as Secretary of Homeland Security, I ran a very successful operation in dealing with human rights violations that were committed by those that were working at DHS. I stopped the segregation of immigrants based on race, gender, sexual orientation, and nationality with a directive order. And I set the record straight that the Department of Homeland Security, under the DiChristopher administration within the department, will not be going into the national spotlight for the wrong reasons. Nor will it go to the national spotlight because there are human rights violations. That is not my mojo. As president, well, of course, I'll work with GOP congressional leaders to reorganize and recollect and re-examine all existing immigration laws while reforming the worst aspects and including new bipartisan measures. And the DiChristopher administration is also going to make sure that every non-citizen that has served honorably on the United States Army do become a full-blown citizen unless they have been convicted of a felony or convicted for a misdemeanor multiple times. Look, the fact that legal immigrants are coming to this country every day and we are getting human rights violations through our Department of Homeland Security, and the fact that the Vice President Roman Sass, who is the GOP candidate in the Republican primaries, said that he would not investigate public prisons based on the human rights violations is absurd. We need to put a stop to this now. And that's why the DiChristopher administration will work with the Department of Homeland Security, and I will work with my Secretary of Homeland Security to make sure that they do the right things in the right
Thank
space
you.
to
Your
make
5
sure
minutes is up now.
that's not 5 minutes to make sure
Yeah,
that these things don't happen again. And I'll
Miss-
also work with Department of Prison
Representative
Security to
DiChristopher,
increase
your
the
5
number of
minutes is
yearly
up.
inspections into ICE border facilities.
Mr. DiChristopher.
Thank you. Don't need to get loud. Thank you.
Mr. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Mr. May, you have 5 minutes to respond to my question. Okay, we will now go through a 5-minute recess. I mean a 5-minute commercial break.
Okay.
This debate is brought to you by Tylenol. Come try it, so you don't get a damn headache. Tylenol.
What about
the best burgers you got? I
The
don't know.
Democratic presidential debate will resume shortly.
Oh no, wait. Are you running for
The
president?
Democratic National Debate will
Me?
begin
No.
shortly.
I mean, I
Will
have an
resume
exploratory
shortly.
committee there.
um shit, what is it called? Excuse my language. Welcome back to the Democratic primary debate, where we have our two candidates here, Mr. James May, Democrat from Ohio, and Representative Wyatt DiChristopher, Democrat from New York. Now we will go through uh, our next question. Oh shit! Sorry. Um, this will go to Social Security. uh, right now, we are facing uh our elderly who have, of course, retired, not getting the financial compensations that they need from the federal government. That Social Security, for the last 5 years, when government has been controlled by Republican hands, has, of course, decreased from its time. As president, what would you do to help increase Social Security benefits for our elderly? This will go to Mr. May from Ohio. Okay, we'll go back to you. Representative DiChristopher, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, as president, I plan to propose a plan that will give senior citizens better financial security, decrease senior poverty by 60%, and update the rules and regulations to make them fair for senior citizens. The fact that we have Republicans in the House and in the Senate, including someone who's currently running for president, opposing Social Security for senior citizens, or at least voting or supporting decreasing benefits for Social Security is absurd. Look, we need to make Social Security better in this country. We need to make sure that the politicians down at Capitol Hill don't interfere with Social Security benefits, especially for senior citizens. And that is why I will also eliminate sub-minimum wage and increase economic growth by about $150 billion over the next 7 to 8 years, and increase benefits for those in the bottom half of the income distribution by 20%. When we implement bold and comprehensive reforms, especially on Social Security, we get bold results. Results that work for the American people. In this case, for our senior citizens.
Okay, this question goes to Mr. James May.
I'm sorry.
How will you? What is your position on Social Security, and would you increase Social Security benefits for the elderly in the United States?
Um, mm,
Thank you, James May. Okay. um, would anyone? This we will now go to the crowd asking questions from a town hall. Would anyone from the crowd like to ask any questions for our two presidential candidates?
Yes,
You will
I'd
have
like
5 minutes to ask a
I'd
question.
like to ask questions.
Okay.
Like the DDoS.
Wait.
Dark slogan. Okay,
Wait,
all
no,
right.
mm-mm.
Uh,
Wait a
uh,
second. We will. It will be Marty. If Mr. Ladybug would like to speak, he will be next after Marty. Thank you.
well, all right. I'd like to ask both candidates what exactly is their position on dealing with Afghanistan, the Taliban. How exactly are we supposed to? Should we move troops out of the country, or should we retain our military presence there and continue our assault on the Taliban, even though our vice president said it's a very distant conflict and it's not necessarily the most relevant to the American political discourse right now is. Many people are becoming more tired, and the Afghanistan seems more of a distant memory.
You have
to
2
many.
minutes left for your statement.
And since 2001, since the attack on 9/11, it has been more and more distant to the American memory. So how do you plan to deal with that specifically? Thank you, and I yield.
Either candidate can answer this question.
May I? Thank you. Well, thank you for the question, Marty. Well, what we first need to do is I need to talk with my Secretary of State on that specific issue. Because what we are seeing is our troops getting killed, getting hurt in the Middle East, and it seems like the government do not care at all. There are many people that want us to move out of Afghanistan. And, I agree on that. But I also agree that we need to stay there and better promote democracy and peace throughout that region. But again, the only way to do that is if we negotiate with their leaders. If we don't have no negotiations at the table, then there's no mentioning us moving our troops back to the United States. But
can I follow up?
Yes.
You'll have a minute.
All right. Well, how do you want to risk more American lives? You want to risk more American lives by keeping American troops in Afghanistan, and it's a distant country. And in addition, would you what would be your alternative? Why would you want to keep our troops in one of the forgotten wars? Risk American lives.
Wait, hold on. Did you say why would I want to risk American lives?
Yes.
Okay, well, in my
keeping
first
troops in
response,
Afghanistan.
I agreed with both of the ideas, and I said that I have to speak with my Secretary of State on the issue. What happened on 9/11 will never be forgotten. Never be forgotten. And many of our diplomatic leaders have said that this is a war that we should not fight. Some have said we need to stay there and we need to make our dominance strong in that region. Would I want to risk American lives? No. If we risk American lives by not having a comprehensive strategy to get our troops out, then that's a problem. So that's the answer to your question. Do you have another question that you would like to ask me regarding that?
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Yeah,
No.
please
What's
ask me.
Mr. May? What's May's question?
no,
What's May's answer?
Yes, thank you. Would you like to answer this question, Mr. James May? Okay. Mr. Ladybug, would you have any questions for the two candidates?
Yes, absolutely. Since I wasn't really, I literally just joined like a minute ago. I'm wondering. I guess Mr. May might have said something earlier, but I'm just wondering what his thoughts on healthcare might be. Like if the Senate and the House somehow pass Medicare for all bill, what would his opinion on matter be? Like, would he be in support of it or what?
100% in support of it.
All right. Would Mr. Ladybug have any other question for the candidate?
Also, what do you think your foreign policy?
Oh no, we already talked about foreign policy.
Not really. Wait, hold up, just.
Hold up, ring, ding, 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 ding.
Okay.
How's Ivan Bartol's slogan?
I'm back.
Trump chat.
He's dead.
So, for example, things like I guess Paris Climate Agreement or more involvement in the UN, like people getting involved with UN peacekeeping. things like that, so America and its military can be held accountable. How would you feel on like, I don't know, maybe joining UN peacekeeping efforts or increasing free trade?
I would support joining UN peacekeeping efforts, and I would support increasing free trade. I generally would support more interaction with the globe in a peaceful manner.
All right, pretty based. I yield my.
Okay, thank you. We will now go to a short commercial, but we will now we will now say this debate has been brought to you by McDonald's.
And your time has cut out.
Diabetes. Oh, yeah, also we have the new... That's
The
diabetes.
Democratic presidential debate will
Alright,
resume
Donald Trump,
in
let's make
exactly
America great
2
again.
to 4
Brought to you
minutes.
by
Thank
The
you for your
Apprentice
cooperation.
with Donald Trump.
Welcome.
Whoops.
Hush. Thank you. Welcome back to the Democratic presidential primary with our two great presidential candidates, Representative Wyatt DiChristopher from New York and Mr. James May from Ohio. Now we will go to our closing state. Who's making noise? Now we will go to our closing statements. Uh, on a coin flip, uh, Mr. James May will be first with your closing statement. Okay, we will go back to you. Mr. Representative DeChristopher, you will have 5 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. Well, the struggle has been real. What you just witnessed was a 1 hour and 20-minute debate against me and my opponent on the issues that matter most to Americans. You heard my side, you've heard his side. But the question is, who is more qualified to become the Democratic nominee and to become the President of the United States? Well, let's compare the candidates in this race to the White House. How many of them have actually held public office and introduced legislation targeted with criminal justice reform? Me. How many of them have sat at the table in the forefront of certain negotiations that would change this country is ran? Me. As far as I'm concerned, I am the most experienced. Moving on to character. How does my character differ from that of my opponent? Well, I have the legislative history to back me up and to back my campaign up that my character is very strong into helping the American people. I've always said that in order to have bold things done in this country, we need to have a bold leader in the White House, and we need to pass reform that helps. again, what you just witnessed was a 1 hour and 20-minute debate. And if it's not clear to you now, I do believe that I am the most experienced and qualified candidate up on this stage to become the next president of the United States. If you have any questions after this debate about me or my opponent, you can always reach out to us. And again, it was a great honor to participate in this debate, and I happily look forward to the one on Sunday. Yep, Sunday. And remember, those people from Lincoln, remember to vote in the Lincoln presidential primary tomorrow. Support it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
God bless America.
Mr. May, you now have the floor. 5 minutes. Mr. May?
Bruh.
And a vertebrae.
Okay. Okay. This will be the end. Thank you, Mr. May, for your great speech. Okay. This will be the end of the Democratic primary. What you have witnessed was over an hour of great responses to great issues at hand that has been concerning to millions of Americans. And now we will commence the first Democratic primary debate.
The Democratic presidential primary is, well, not primary, but the debate is over. This was the Lincoln debate.
Wyatt's muted. How can he hear us if
Hold on.
No,
The presidential debate is now over. Thank you for watching.
Okay.